Hello, my name is Andrew Fitzmaurice. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Template Executives, an international award-winning cybersecurity company. And I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to be supporting CYBERISLE 2020. This short webinar poses the question, COVID-19, is this the best Chief Digital Officer we never had to pay for? COVID-19 has accelerated the digital agenda for many sectors, but is this a good thing? First, I'm going to look at the threat landscape and see how it's changed as a result of COVID-19. Early on into the pandemic, the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, part of GCHQ, and the US Department of Homeland Security reported that cybercrime has evolved and is still evolving, growing in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And very sadly, despite the rest of the world trying to pull together and defeat the pandemic, some nation states, serious organised crime and individuals have tried to exploit the situation, with activities ranging from financial gain to destabilisation. They've achieved this quite often by manipulating human emotions, such as fear, compassion and curiosity. Nation-state advanced persistent threats, known as APTs, and the former nation-state adversaries continue to work closely with serious and organised crime gangs to enhance capability and capacity. By June this year, it was estimated around 140 misinformation campaigns about COVID-19 circulating in the UK, causing fear, doubt and disruption. COVID-19 has given phishing, and indeed spear phishing, a huge boost. We've seen multiple scams, whether it be fake charities asking for donations, the mis-selling of bogus PPE, or indeed coronavirus cures themselves. Ransomware is featured extensively in the press at the moment, after a ransomware attack on a university hospital in Dusseldorf, Germany, led very sadly to the death of a patient. To effect such an attack, we have observed there have been a notable surge in a new form of dual attack. First, the successful exfiltration of information, then attackers holding that information for ransom, utilising many well-known forms of ransomware, such as Maze or Locagoga. Whilst undoubtedly medical institutions remain a target, we have seen a recent swing back to the traditional targets and away from healthcare, including malicious access to businesses' critical systems, affecting businesses large and small in sectors such as financial services. Cybercrime is increasing in the short term and probably the long term as well. Cyber criminals are exploiting perceived operational gaps in law enforcement, who are really struggling to deal with the new digital operating environment, hybrid environment that COVID-19 has forced upon us all. We have seen a 3,000% rise in the activities and interests of low-skilled but disruptive hackers, so-called script kiddies. Also, clever misinformation has also suggested the relaxing of certain regulations. However, data protection, the General Data Protection Regulation and the UK Data Protection Act 2018 and NISR remain the law. Companies must understand the new way of working to ensure they maintain observance of the principles of these laws and regulations, or they will risk legal action. So what does it look like out there? In its latest figures for 2020, Verizon report concluded that 70% of breaches were caused by outsiders. That's leaving 30% of insider threats. 86% of breaches were financially motivated. 43% of breaches were attacks on web applications. And that's more than double the results from last year. And lastly, 27% of malware incidents can be attributed to ransomware. And this is the reason why ransomware is a multi-billion-dollar business. Another company, TransUnion, found that nearly a quarter of UK consumers, that's around about 23%, have been targeted by digital fraud over the past 2 months. Opportunistic criminals have taken advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they have scammed more than 1 in 10 UK adults. That's 12%, and out of an average of £550 each, collectively costing the nation £3.6 billion. In fact, according to some government sources, fraud and error could cost the UK government up to £7.9 billion before the pandemic comes under any form of control. Eye-watering amounts, undoubtedly made easier by the majority of our activities forced into digital media. So looking at hybrid working, am I secure as I was before? Well, as the threat landscape has shown, in general, there is a direct correlation between home-based working and the increase in the number of potential victims of cybercrime. Many organisations are just not set up for prolonged home working, and many organisations hadn't provided their workers with their own mobile IT, forcing many of them to use their own equipment, thus mixing work and pleasure on the same device, in what is often not a work-friendly environment. I remember hearing the champagne corks popping when the disruption of homeschooling formally came to an end for many exhausted parents who were also trying to do home working at the same time. To emphasise the difference, this slide on the screen represents the pre-COVID office environment. As we will all remember, whilst in the office working environment, and boy does that seem a long time ago, we had a commensurate level of discipline that the environment itself would reinforce, such as pass-activated self-locking doors, secure area networks, control of entry, discrete areas for sensitive work and easy access to the IT team for any help that we required, and oddly, but very significantly, the support of our co-workers close at hand. In March, of course, the lockdown changed all that. The majority of the workforce were forced to work from home. For most organisations, the cybersecurity business and technical policies had been developed and tailored for their normal, i.e. office-based, physical environments. Although the policy suite may have contained some direction on home working, business continuity, disaster recovery, it was usually for temporary periods of time, with the primary emphasis being the office environment. But when COVID struck, most businesses sent their workers home. This slide encapsulates the range of potential issues and challenges that home working from home presented to a vast majority of people. For those in single-room bedsits or having to share closely with other members of the household, maintaining levels of business efficiency and confidentiality would and does prove extremely challenging. Anecdotal evidence has suggested that some government-provided equipment was designed only to be used for short periods of time, and that the laptops had actually melted during prolonged home use. We also found that people reacted to the home working environment was pretty individual in nature, with some very previously solid individuals visibly discombobulated by the changing environment. The effect on people's mental health has also, quite rightly, risen up the management agenda. As a company, we've been proactively helping our clients understand the risks and create policies and working practices that minimise the threats such as a working environment could create, while still aiming to maximise productivity. So what should your organisation be aiming for? Well, let's take managed service providers. Best practice for managed service providers could include having a well-defined service level agreement, ensuring remote administration tools are patched and up to date, enforcing least privilege for access to resources, have well-defined security controls that comply with end users' regulatory compliance, perform regular data audits, take into consideration data compliance standards, and proactively conduct cyber security training and educational programs for all employees. And as for the customers, well, the best practice for customers of managed service providers could be auditing those service level agreements, auditing remote administration tools being utilised in your environment. VPN services are not all the same by any stretch of the imagination, so ensure that your MSP is shopped around and confirm the capability of the VPN service they're offering. Enforce two-factor authentication for all remote logins. So what does success look like going forward? Well, with the advent of COVID-19, the need to use ICT solutions to carry on delivering services and running businesses, many organisations have seen this as a great catalyst to accelerate their often previously nascent digital strategies. This would seem a logical solution to meet a very current need, but the success that nefarious actors are having will continue if the cybersecurity agenda isn't also accelerated as well. The graph on the screen clearly shows that whilst resources have been poured into the digital outcomes required, the lack of understanding that cybersecurity must keep pace has clearly opened a yawning gap between the two agendas. This gap in reality produces an increased vulnerable attack surface. Moreover, many organisations will be operating in a license to operate, having gained a level of assurance around the maturity of its information security, IT networks and ICT practices. I'm talking about things like 27001 and Cyber Essentials Plus. it is undoubtedly a fact that due to enforced home working or hybrid way of working, splitting team individual working between home and office will mean that many organisations will not now be meeting the same levels of assurance that they were prior to lockdown. Nor, just as importantly, will be the supply base that supports an organisation's business activities. For small medium enterprises, Temporary Executives offers a quick and easy assessment tool called Blade Light that will conduct a very thorough passive pen test to let an organisation know within 24 hours, quicker than getting a coronavirus test back, what risks remote hybrid working might have inadvertently induced. Please see our website for more details. So going back to the original question I posed at the beginning, is the increased digital agenda due to COVID-19 a good thing? On the whole, organisations will find efficiencies from the acceleration of their digital strategies, and hybrid ways of working are definitely here to stay. But, and it is a big but, unless the cyber security agenda is also increased to match and protect the digital agenda, the increased threat landscape will have a material and detrimental effect on business in all sectors that are targeted. In the context of hybrid working, sadly we are some way off yet. In a survey of the US workforce published this month, it reveals some sobering stats about the realities of hybrid working. Although there are no major surprises, the report does reveal a disjoint between the perceptions of Chief Information Security Officers and the realities as lived by employees. During COVID lockdown, for instance, CISOs may say that they have stepped up awareness training for staff working from home, but only 30% of employees felt they had been given any guidance. Similarly, workers aged between 24 and 39 are particularly inclined to lend their office-provided equipment to housemates, friends or family for online gaming or shopping, with the risk of exposing the corporate device and its data. And over 50% of workers in the 24 to 39 bracket said that they had downloaded onto their work devices apps that are specifically forbidden by their employers. So whilst COVID-19 has accelerated the digital agenda and created the new norm of hybrid working and supporting cybersecurity agenda, definitely gets a rating of needs more work. Thank you again for the CYBERISLE 2020 organisers for asking TE to participate in this very worthwhile virtual conference. Stay safe and thank you.